When you decide to be intimate with someone, you are likely taught that it's merely about pleasure, a simple matter of physical chemistry, or something fleeting that only happens at that moment. Perhaps you believe everything ends right there, that afterward, nothing at all remains, and that whatever was experienced simply evaporates once you leave the encounter. But pause for a moment and reflect. What if I were to tell you there's much more behind this union? What would you think if you discovered that, as Helena Blavatsky revealed, every time you share your intimacy with someone, something much deeper and more transcendental occurs than simply two bodies making contact? That's because Blavatsky made it clear that these encounters create invisible energetic connections capable of persisting beyond time. Each encounter, each caress, each moment of surrender means more than a mere physical act. Even if you can't see or consciously perceive it, every time you give yourself to someone, an invisible mark is imprinted on your being. It's a kind of energetic imprint that remains with you beyond time and space, like a subtle memory that follows you every step of the way, even when you believe everything has already been left behind. Most people prefer to ignore this fact, since it's simpler and more convenient to believe intimacy is just a fleeting moment, a physical act with no major implications or consequences. But if that were really so, ask yourself, why do so many people, after sharing an intimate moment, feel an inexplicable emptiness? Why does a strange feeling of sadness or loneliness sometimes arise after physical satisfaction? Why can't certain people forget certain encounters, however brief they may have been, even as time passes and despite their minds trying to convince them it was unimportant? Maybe this has already happened to you. Suddenly, you planned a casual encounter without emotional commitment, yet something changed inside you afterward. It could have been a sadness that appeared with no explanation, an emptiness you didn't understand, or a melancholy that seemed to come out of nowhere. Or unintentionally you developed feelings for the other person, something that wasn't part of your plan. These sensations are neither a coincidence nor a mere whim of the heart. They are very clear signs of something most ignore, the energetic interchange that takes place during intimacy. The reality is this, and few want to hear it. Sex goes beyond the flesh and momentary pleasure. It's an invisible pact between two souls, a profound energetic union that doesn't simply dissolve. Each time you unite with someone, you end up absorbing part of that person's essence and simultaneously giving away part of your own. In this invisible sharing, memories, emotions, and energies merge, leaving marks that are hard to erase. That's precisely why, after intimacy with someone, you might feel things you didn't feel before. You might notice an emotional heaviness that doesn't make sense, or a strange melancholy, or maybe the opposite. A sudden euphoria that fades quickly and leaves you confused. These feelings are genuine. They're not just figments of your imagination or simple hormonal fluctuations, but rather reflections of that energetic bond formed between you and the person with whom you shared your body. When you share your body with someone, you also share that person's history, wounds, fears, and repressed emotions. Even if you don't consciously notice, you welcome fragments of that person's life into yourself, and in return, give away some of your own essence. Over time, you become an energetic combination of all the people you've been with, especially if you've never been aware of this process. So, before you give yourself to someone again, it's worth asking if you truly know the person you're allowing into your core. Who is this person really? What kind of energy do they carry? Do you want to carry their essence and emotions with you? Because once you allow such a deep connection, there is no going back. You won't just be sharing your body, you'll be opening your vital energy, something that can shape your life more profoundly than you could ever imagine. Perhaps at some point after being intimate, you felt a deep sadness that didn't align with the experience you had. Or it might have been an artificial euphoria, short-lived, leaving you feeling even more empty once it dissipated. Know that this isn't just happenstance or a passing emotional game. It's real, because when you connect intimately with someone, your energies intertwine intensely, creating an invisible bond that remains, even if you don't perceive it. It makes no difference whether you believe in these things or choose to ignore them. It doesn't matter if you consider all of this absurd or fanciful. The fact remains that it happens in every encounter, in every exchange. If you're not fully aware of who you let into your deepest self, you run the risk of absorbing energies that aren't yours, bearing the traumas of others with repressed emotions and shadows you previously never had. This is where most people get it wrong. They believe everything can be easily compartmentalized. The body on one side, the emotions on another, energy somewhere else, as though each part of the human being existed in isolation. But life doesn't work that way. We are an integrated whole, and everything that affects us physically also affects us emotionally and energetically. It isn't possible to play with fire and never get burned, nor is it possible to open the door of your soul and pretend no one will leave traces when they exit. Whenever you decide to share your intimacy with someone, you do far more than offer your body. You allow that person to enter deeply into your energetic field. And if that person carries negativity, frustrations, intense fears, open wounds, and unresolved emotional scars, what do you think will happen? All that emotional load, which isn't yours, can begin to manifest inside you without you realizing it. That's why, after a few intimate encounters, you may feel heavy, confused, or emotionally exhausted, as though you're carrying something you cannot identify. It's the other person's energy mixing with yours, contaminating your original essence. And all that negativity, emotional scars, and profound fears can become etched into your energy, even if you're not consciously aware of it. Perhaps you've heard of energetic ties and thought it was mere poetry, metaphor, or fantasy. But it isn't. It's something real, even if invisible to the naked eye. The proof is in the people who remain emotionally tied to someone long after all physical contact has ended. You probably know of cases where someone can't stop thinking about a certain person, attempting to move forward and rebuild their life, yet something within them finds no peace. They remain attached to memories, emotions, recurring thoughts of a person who no longer exists in their physical life. It isn't just longing or a trick of the mind, it's something deeper. The persistent echo of an energetic bond, an invisible link that doesn't fade simply because you decided to forget. And that's where it becomes more delicate and risky. The more you share intimacy without awareness, without truly understanding with whom you're uniting, the more invisible ties you create, binding you to people who may never have deserved a piece of your precious energy. With each unconscious encounter, with each unthinking surrender, your energy disperses little by little, leaving you increasingly fragmented, confused, and emotionally vulnerable. It's no coincidence that many people, after having multiple partners or several casual relationships, end up feeling hollow, as though something essential in them was lost along the way. It's like each intimate experience has stripped away a small, valuable piece of their essence. And now, looking inward, they no longer recognize themselves, feeling incomplete, strangers to their own bodies and minds. And no, this doesn't mean sex is wrong, or that seeking pleasure is condemnable or immoral. The reasoning is more subtle and complex. It's about ignoring the energetic and spiritual dimension that always accompanies every intimate encounter. Most people think they're just sharing their bodies, but in truth, they're sharing energy, history, and their deeper essence. Pretending that this exchange doesn't exist doesn't erase its reality. It only leaves you more exposed to absorbing energies that aren't yours, which gradually alter who you are until you're unsure how you ended up in a particular emotional state or how to return to who you once were. Therefore, before sharing yourself with someone again, pause and reflect consciously. Does this person truly deserve to receive a fragment of your energy? Do you want part of yourself to remain tied to someone who may no longer be in your life tomorrow, yet whose energy could remain within you for a long time? The real issue isn't the intimacy itself. It never was. The big danger is the unconsciousness with which many people engage in that intimacy. It's the illusion that you can enter and leave another person's energy without consequences, as though it were a door that opens and closes without leaving a trace. It's reducing something sacred, profoundly spiritual and energetic, to a meaningless game. There's a harsh truth in all of this. When you share intimacy with someone, you don't just exchange pleasure. You carry away part of that person's essence and give a bit of yours in return. Now ask yourself sincerely, are you truly prepared to bear the emotional, energetic, and spiritual baggage of everyone you've become involved with? Can you identify in yourself the marks left by those encounters that may have seemed casual, yet carry great energetic significance? And here lies the greatest contradiction. You seek pleasure, but often end up carrying an emotional burden you never wanted. You seek connection, but wind up feeling increasingly fragmented. You want freedom, but find yourself chained to memories, external energies, and invisible bonds that are hard to sever. These subtle links keep people stuck in inexplicable feelings, sudden sadness, and bouts of nostalgia that arise from nowhere. All of it a result of energetic exchanges that happened without proper awareness. Hence, the next time you consider sharing your intimacy with someone, pause and ask the crucial question, who really is this person I'm allowing into my life, my energy, my innermost being? What kind of vibration, emotions, and burdens do they carry? Do I truly want to intertwine myself with this individual on a level that goes far beyond the physical? Because in the end, it's not only about the pleasure of the moment, but above all, about what remains after the body's part, leaving only the invisible imprint of the encounter behind. If you don't understand what you give and receive in each union, you may someday wake up feeling inexplicably empty, sad, or confused, without knowing why. And the worst part, you might never figure out what happened simply because you weren't aware of how you relinquished your energy. Therefore, before opening the door to your intimacy again, think carefully about who truly deserves to receive a piece of your most precious energy. Each encounter is an energetic pact whose consequences linger well after the moment is over. Reflect sincerely. How many times have you felt an indescribable weariness after being with someone, as though something deep within you had changed? Maybe you felt as though you'd left behind an essential part of who you are. Or worse, perhaps you took on emotions or energies that weren't yours, strange feelings that invaded you with no apparent source. Believe me, it's not a coincidence. It's not your imagination or mere physical exhaustion. It's the result of something seldom spoken of openly, something rarely explained. Intimacy is never purely physical. Reality is denser and deeper. Each intimate encounter involves an invisible exchange in which emotional wounds can also be transferred without your knowledge, remaining imprinted on your energy long after the physical contact ends. And that's where the danger lies. When you unite with someone, you don't just take on that person's energy, but everything they carry. Their experiences, memories, sorrows, joys, their deepest fears. All of that flows toward you, quietly lodging in your essence. To better understand, imagine each person as a crystal goblet. Some are filled with light, peace, and emotional clarity. Their energy is luminous, with healing properties and inner strength. Others, however, carry shadows, unresolved traumas, insecurities, fears, and toxicity. Then ask yourself honestly, from which goblet are you drinking whenever you decide to give yourself to someone? Because every time you do so, you drink directly from their essence and connect deeply with their stories and burdens. Each time you get intimately involved, you allow that person's essence to merge with yours. Their past inevitably merges with your present, leaving marks that cannot be erased. And here's the most alarming part. If that person hasn't healed their wounds and carries toxicity, insecurities, frustrations, and unresolved pain, where do you think all that energy goes? Straight to you, and you don't even realize it. This is how you end up absorbing emotional weight that isn't yours, becoming a repository for sorrows and internal conflicts that were never yours to begin with. That's why it's crucial to stay conscious of whom you allow into your energetic field, into your emotional and spiritual world. After all, once you absorb that weight, it remains in you and affects your life in ways you can't even imagine. Thus, before you give yourself, consider the kind of essence you're prepared to receive. Because the energetic exchange in intimacy is real, powerful and transformative, whether for better or worse. Exactly. All that energy flows to you because intimacy was never merely a physical act, two bodies meeting. Above all, it's a profound transference, a subtle yet extremely intense exchange of energies, which stamps an indelible imprint on you, even if it can't be seen or touched. The great spiritual teacher Helena Blavatsky was explicit in her teachings. Every time we share our intimacy with someone, we create a deep, energetic bond between two souls, a bond that transcends the physical moment and continues to operate long after. Blavatsky emphasized that these invisible bonds can extend throughout your life, affecting your energy, emotional state, and spiritual evolution in ways you cannot imagine. So think carefully. If you could clearly see the energetic, emotional, and spiritual load carried by every person you've shared intimacy with, would you feel at peace with what you allowed into your life? Would you be comfortable with the energies that now constitute part of your essence? That's the core problem. Most of us live unconsciously, without understanding or valuing how crucial it is to protect our vital energy. From a young age, we learn to care for material assets, money, our home, and even to protect our physical privacy. But very few are taught to preserve their energy, their spiritual essence. Helena Blavatsky continually warned about the danger of surrendering yourself energetically without awareness, explaining that many people go through life offering what's most valuable, their vital energy, to anyone who crosses their path, under the impression that intimacy exists only on a superficial or momentary level. However, the truth is different. Every intimate encounter is a permanent exchange, an invisible pact, whose repercussions can deeply influence your life. So when you play around with your energy without clarity, thinking you can enter and exit someone else's energetic sphere without repercussions, you're fooling yourself. Because, as Blavatsky explained, nothing truly ends after the physical act. On the contrary, from that moment on, an invisible but powerful energetic process begins, one that continues to operate and can completely transform your story. Hence, before opening yourself again to intimacy, always remember Blavatsky's words and ask, do I truly want to weave my essence with this person's energy? Do I want to carry part of the wounds, emotions, and burdens they bring? Because ultimately, it's not just what happens in that moment that matters, but what remains in you once the lights go out, once the bodies separate, leaving only the invisible webs of an exchange you barely noticed. If you ignore this, one day you may awaken feeling empty, confused, laden with burdens that aren't yours, clueless about how they arrived there. That's why it's so important to consciously safeguard your energy and choose wisely with whom you share your intimacy, honoring the profound spiritual wisdom that Helena Blavatsky bestowed on the world. I want you to understand something essential. Within you is an extraordinary capacity to reprogram your mind, and by doing so, to transform completely your surroundings, your reality, and every aspect of your life. This metamorphosis isn't superficial or temporary. It happens at your core, the part that some call the higher self, or genuine spiritual connection. But to achieve this state of fullness, you must first understand something fundamental about intimacy and the energy exchange that occurs in every intimate encounter. Perhaps you have heard or experienced situations in which, after a single intimate encounter, something in you changed radically. Suddenly, your thoughts shifted, your mood altered in ways you couldn't understand. You likely never knew why, because we're never taught that each intimate act goes beyond physical contact. It's a deep interchange of invisible memories, emotions and vibrations that intertwine with our vital energy. That's why, the less aware you are when choosing someone to lie down with and share your essence, the more vulnerable you become to energies that aren't yours, to emotions you don't own, to burdens that were never meant to be yours. This is why so many people, after spending long periods in superficial relationships or frequent casual encounters, end up feeling broken, empty, or shattered inside. It's not just bad luck. It's the consequence of having given themselves too freely without realizing it, blending their energies with those of many others whose shadows now remain in them. Perhaps this is the ideal time for you to reflect. How many people have left their marks within you? How many have influenced your emotional balance, your mood, your outlook on the world, without you ever realizing it? I'm not saying you should flee from pleasure or isolate yourself entirely. Pleasure is a natural and valuable part of human life, but I invite you to awaken, to become fully conscious, to see intimacy as something sacred, profound, and transformative. Intimacy is an energetic pact and a spiritual union that can shape you more than you imagine. It shouldn't be handled negligently or ignorantly, because each encounter brings tangible consequences in the energetic realm. Whenever you give your intimacy, you offer a precious piece of your essence and simultaneously receive something of the other person's. That's why you must stay attentive, conscious, and choose carefully with whom you decide to share that sacred moment. Whatever meets you energetically can redefine not only your current feelings, but also how you live the rest of your life. The saddest part is that many people only realize these truths when it's already too late, when nostalgia consumes them daily, when an inexplicable sadness emerges, and they have no idea why they feel like that. Then they discover invisible ties still binding them to people who are no longer physically in their lives, but remain energetically active within them. Do you want to know why some people, regardless of all efforts, can't forget someone they once shared something with? Why they repeatedly dream about this person, even though years have gone by since their last contact? Why no matter how much time passes, they still feel a profound connection to that other soul? The explanation is simple, yet deeply revealing. Energy doesn't completely vanish over time. It dilutes, it transforms, but it remains alive and resonant within you. The more intense the connection, the stronger the bond that endures. That's why certain relationships, however brief and fleeting, can leave marks that never fade, while others, even long-lasting ones, reveal themselves to be shallow, superficial, and leave little lasting impact. Note that it's not the amount of time that matters, but the energy exchanged, the emotional and spiritual depth. So now ask yourself, to whom are you allowing access to your soul and deepest essence? In the end, your entire life hinges on that fundamental decision. Either you consciously protect your vital energy, or you let just anyone distort, manipulate, and pollute it, bringing up feelings, traumas, and vibrations that should never have been yours. Here's another thought to ponder. If after sharing intimacy with someone you find yourself stronger, calmer, and more in tune with who you are, be glad, because you made a good choice. But if, after that encounter, you feel emptiness, restlessness, or an inexplicable emotional heaviness, you've likely allowed energy that wasn't yours to enter your life. Remember, intimacy is much more than a physical experience. It's a profound union of energetic and spiritual fields. Protect it wisely, because what enters you today might shape how you feel tomorrow, how you live, and even how you see yourself. Returning to Helena Blavatsky's words, she asserted that in every intimate sharing, a profound energetic bond is formed that transcends time and can continue affecting a person's life long after the physical encounter has ended. This isn't hollow mysticism, it's the invisible reality operating on a subtle level, with real effects on our emotional and psychological dimension. So, when you behave as though intimacy were a simple game, unaware that you're dealing with energies and essences, you put yourself at risk, because nothing that occurs in that intimate environment vanishes once the bodies part. Maybe you'll wake up one day overwhelmed by strange feelings, unexplained sadness or mental confusion, without understanding why. And that's the biggest issue. Most of the time, you'll never know where it came from, precisely because you ignored the moment you opened the door to your energy and allowed something or someone to enter. Hence, the major lesson is this: learn to be conscious. Learn to choose carefully the person with whom you share what is most sacred within you. Inside you lies an extraordinary potential to reprogram your mind, to reshape your environment, and to alter your personal reality on every level. But for that process to unfold smoothly, it's crucial to guard and protect your energy with care, especially the energy you exchange in intimacy. It's a sacred, profound act that must never be treated carelessly or dismissed as trivial, because each time you unite with someone, you're writing yet another chapter in your energetic history. And those pages can't simply be torn out or thrown away. They remain imprinted on your essence. Therefore, before taking that next step, before letting someone into your intimate life, think carefully. Does this person truly deserve such deep access? Are you prepared to handle that person's emotional baggage as part of your life from now on? And are you ready to surrender part of your own energy to them? If you answer yes, do so with full awareness, respect, and reciprocity. But if not, perhaps it's time to rethink and to value your energy, recognizing that intimacy isn't something to be scattered to the four winds, but rather a treasure you share attentively and with full knowledge of the consequences. None of this means you should fear or forbid yourself from experiencing pleasure. It's about honoring what's most genuine in the human experience, the profound connection between bodies, minds, and souls. It's understanding that each exchange, each caress, each moment of surrender leaves marks on who we are. And in the end, these marks can enrich your existence or burden you with weights that were never yours. May each of your choices be made with responsibility and wisdom, and may you truly protect, nurture, and honor your vital energy. The same energy that Helena Blavatsky underscored as essential to our evolution. Because when you respect your energy and understand the real scope of intimacy, you can experience more complete, genuine relationships that bring growth in every sense of the word.